Perry says it's a clear indication they're close, very close, to indicting him. Executing the search warrant is almost the last step in the playbook. A quote from someone who knows their way around these probes. And with us is that, Danya Perry, here to give us insights into the legal process. Michael Steele, the former RNC chair who endorsed Joe Biden. And Olivia Nuzzi, Washington correspondent for New York Magazine. You may recall some of her coverage of Rudy Giuliani that was interesting, largely because of the way Giuliani rolls. Her story, A Reporter's Guide to Texting with Rudy Giuliani, was chock full of nuggets that remain, in the news cycle, evergreen. Good to have all of you here. I gave a little legal summary, and we'll get to more of the law. But, Michael, I want to begin with you, big picture. What does it mean, even in a time where everyone's gotten used to everything, that the former president sees a second top attorney of his indicted by the raided by the Southern District, the previous one indicted? And what does this tell us about the hangover from that Trump era?
Well, it's not a good day in the neighborhood if you're in the Giuliani neighborhood or in the Trump neighborhood, because it means that there are federal investigations that are out there and we don't even know. It's a lot like very good reporters when they put out the first story about something and it like blows up and everybody's like, oh, my God, you know, there's a second and possibly a third or fourth story coming along. Same is true in this situation with federal indictments. When there's the hint that there's something going on, when there's a raid or an investigation, that doesn't happen, especially when it requires a judge to sign off on it. It doesn't happen unless you have all those dots dotted and those T's crossed in a way that puts some cement to what you're doing. And I think that should be very concerning for Rudy and for Trump. But here's the rub. On the Trump end of it, he's just like, Rudy who? I really don't know the guy. We met on occasions, but I'm not that familiar. What does he do again? So expect that to come at some point if the heat comes up on this, where Trump creates that sort of Heisman move that he's noted for in creating distance between him and the individual who's suspect number 1, 2, or 20. And Rudy then has to figure out how he navigates this space. There are a lot of stories out there about just how sort of thin this relationship is between Rudy and Donald Trump in the first place. So we'll see whether or not that has an effect as this investigation unfolds.
And Danya, you look at the situation, as Michael mentions, just for reporting the news, if any former lawyer to the recent president has their home and office raided, it's a huge story. If this happened to former President Obama and his top lawyer, particularly overlapping with a time when he was the lawyer to the sitting president, we would be reporting that. It's a big deal. It hasn't happened, though, recently to other presidents. It's happened now twice to Donald Trump. Based on your knowledge of SDNY, and we quoted you earlier, where do you see a raid like this figuring into an open probe?
Well, as you say, it's highly unusual. Raids on lawyers' offices are unusual in the first instance. I've seen it done a couple times, both on the defense side. I represented Michael Cohen, who I know will be on later, and Michael Avenatti, both of whom had their offices raided. And there's a lot of steps in the process. I was on the other side for many years at the U.S. Attorney's Office. I had to sign off on these kinds of warrants. And, the U.S. Attorney has to sign off, the Assistant Attorney General, the Deputy, and these ones almost assuredly went up to the level of the Attorney General. So it's a very big deal. Typically, the standard is probable cause. In this case, there was no doubt a much higher standard that was in fact applied. I don't know if it rises to beyond a reasonable doubt, but these lawyers at the U.S. Attorney's Office have been waiting a long time. They've run through all the paces. They had this locked down. So they are feeling very confident about this.
Let's drill on your point there, just to be clear. In a standard situation, probable cause, low, medium standard that there's evidence of the crime in the place being searched, specific, articulable facts. You're saying that because it's a lawyer, let alone a lawyer to the president, and it goes all the way up to that main justice clearance, it is, in fact, practically a much higher standard, which means it's worse for Giuliani?
I think so. I mean, it's not just because he's a lawyer, not just because he's the former president's former lawyer, but also this is obviously a high-profile case. The stakes are high. There are some built-in defenses. There are political defenses. There's going to be a lot at stake here. And so I think for all those reasons that they will have gone the extra mile. No doubt they have executed additional search warrants before they got to this point. They have, as Michael said, dotted all their I's and crossed all their T's. So I think I would be shocked if they couldn't indict right now. There's clearly a grand jury that's already impaneled. Of course, they're going to, this was a belt and suspenders. They're going to go through the evidence.
So
it could take some.
I'm only slowing you down because you're such a smart, fast lawyer. You're moving fast on me. So, I'm just a country television lawyer. As a former assistant U.S. attorney in the Southern District, you're saying, based on your knowledge of the way these things work, that right now your understanding, your premise would be that they already have enough to indict Mr. Giuliani now.
I would say that with a high degree of confidence. I'm generally pretty risk averse, but I would bet a lot of money on that. So the timing, I would say, is unclear just because they are going to want to go through this. They're going to have what's called a taint team to go through it. And they will take as much time as they have. They don't have any political pressures anymore. So they will go through all of the steps and they will make sure, as I said, that it's completely buttoned down. But I think it's highly likely that they know already that this is an indictable offense.
That's fascinating. I mean, Michael, as Elliot Ness used to say, whoop, there it is. I mean, this is a prosecutor saying she thinks they have the goods.
I mean, look, anything can happen, of course, but they've been sitting on this for a long time.
I'm going to Mike. I'm sorry. So I'm bringing Michael in if you can hear me, and then we'll go back to you.
Yeah, no, I was just saying those words were about to trip off my tongue. Whoop, there it is. She just laid it out. And the reality, that's the new reality for Trump and those who have been in that orbit around these very controversial matters. And to the point about what the president himself, Joe Biden, has said in the interview, that I didn't know about this until you learned about it. I think that's the kind of wall that the American people want to see rebuilt between the executive branch and those branches that deal with law enforcement, et cetera, like the FBI, like the Department of Justice, so that we can look at these events as they occur, as these reports are rolled out, and certainly as these investigations unfold, with clean hands and clean eyes, and appreciate the work that's being done here, that it's not somehow tainted, that there is not some backroom deal trying to CYA a Rudy Giuliani or the president himself. And I think that's a good thing right now.
Olivia?
Hi. I think that this is obviously a bad week for Rudy Giuliani, but one that he would have to have seen coming. I mean, he knew the reports were out there for several years now that investigators were interested in him, interested in his business associates. He talked to me about it. He seemed rather bitter and almost hurt in a way that anyone in law enforcement, people that he considers to be, his guys, that's his community of people in his mind, that he would become a target. There's sort of a tragic element to that. But it's not surprising. And in some ways, it's almost as though he's been tempting investigators. His behavior has gotten more and more insane. He's been out in the open talking about meddling in different things for years now, and all on behalf of someone who, as Michael alluded to earlier, it's not like they've got a deep friendship, him and Donald Trump. Donald Trump does not have deep friendships. He has people that he's known a long time. He has people who have done him favors repeatedly. He has people who have displayed loyalty to him for a long time, like Rudy Giuliani. But he does not have, a deep soul connection with other human beings the way that, normal people might. So it's not as though these are guys who go back to grade school and they swore some kind of oath to each other. Rudy has been using Donald Trump for relevance and probably for profit. For the duration of his political career, certainly. And Donald Trump has been using him sort of as an excuse and as someone to kind of take the arrows as they come at him. But if I were Donald Trump, I would be hearing footsteps right now. It's as though investigators for years, whether it's Robert Mueller, whether it's federal investigators now, have been getting closer and closer to the former president himself.